I know Barbie is coming with Sarah. Okay, you Sue. He's there. Hello, everyone, and let's give Dane Participles another hand. Thank you to have them in person with us again. So I want to welcome everyone who's watching virtually, as well as everyone who's come out to see us here in person now, and we are going to begin with our usual opening meditation. So I'll let people here get settled. And we're just going to relax. I invite you to take a couple deep breaths, breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and out. Going to lay down all of the busyness of the day and bring ourselves fully into this present moment. Let's bring our minds down into our hearts and take a few breaths through our heart space. Just activate the knowing of this sacred space within. time together today in deep gratitude and open our hearts to accept all of Spirit's gifts and blessings. Unbounded, unlimited love all around us, within us, and filling us up. We are one with this amazing divine presence, one with the wonders of the universe, love itself. And we open to the miracle of each new moment with acceptance and non-judgment, with a mindset of vibrant and life-affirming clarity and wisdom, in the best interest of all, with each thought and feeling we intentionally set into motion the divine creative process. And from this eternal flow of love into this world, we experience forgiveness and healing. Our fellowship community extends peace, love, kindness, and compassion to all beings on this planet. And together we say, and so it is, and so it is. Thank you so much. So we are going to sing a fellowship song together, so I invite you to stand in your books. It's Spirit Am I on page 38.
perfection in my ear. These thoughts are braided together, though there won't be a tether that binds up my heart. If I can uncover courage and trust when the way is not clear, if I can be brave, brave, brave enough to start, even with the risk of breaking down the armor round my heart. Oh, we've had to lean into failure, wrap our arms around and return its empty embrace. Stop trying to hide behind sight and then stare off right straight in the face. If we can be brave, brave, brave enough to start, even with the risk of taking down the armor round our hearts. One day we'll look back on the journey when we chose to love our shadows who felt real, and when you were brave enough to let your heart be open, the truth ran rivers and you were free to feel. Yes, you are brave, brave, brave enough to start, even with the risk of taking down the armor round your heart. And the beauty inside you no longer hide behind the armor round your
That was beautiful, beautiful, and so perfect for our fellowship. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Rosapolus. I forgot that I have a nice little reading for you here. In Ernest Holmes' book, This Thing Called You. He writes, "You are part of the universal mind, one with the universal substance. The goodness of spirit exists at the center of your being. You only experience this good in such degree as you accept, believe in, and feel it. Since the only life you can have is the life of the spirit within you, you need but permit its radiance to flow through your thought into your self-expression. As you enter into life, feeling the divine presence in everything, more and more, you will hear a song of joy, singing at the center of your being. The life of the eternal spirit is my life. The infinite riches of its being are mine to enjoy. The vitality, the wisdom, and the peace of God are mine. I accept them in fullness, in joy and in peace. Thank you, Ernest Holmes. It's a beautiful, beautiful little book. So now is the time in our service where we pause and bless our tithes and offerings. I think it's such an important time to go within again and maybe touch that heart space and be grateful for all of our blessings and gifts. And we are especially grateful to every one of us who contributes and donates to the fellowship. Thank you for your generosity. I invite you to read with me the blessing of the tithes and offerings. The light of divine love shines eternally, blessing and multiplying our tithes and offerings. I joyously give, knowing I always have enough to share and to spare. Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful donations. Another fellowship song, and for this one, I was going to just invite you to maybe call someone to mind that especially needs some healing energy or some loving energy. We're going to stand up and sing I See the Light on page 24. Ordained by the Fellowship School of Ministry, is our steering committee president as well, and she always puts so much thought and care into the messages that she brings us because she cares so much about each and every one of us. So please let's give her a very, very warm welcome.
So good to be here with all of you right here, and also you watching on our Facebook today. And I would like to talk, this talk will be about a few Course in Miracle workbook lessons that I have found really helpful within the last few months. And in dealing with the collective heaviness, the collective dis-ease, a lot of stress, and some grief issues as well. And for me, these lessons have been great resets, or reminders, that we do not have to do life on our own. They are reminders that we get to do our life with God, with love, Buddha, Jesus, whoever your truth being, who you believe and resonate in. And these lessons, like so many great wisdom, spiritual teachings, provide a training for us to be guided by love in all circumstances. And I think especially in the circumstances that we're dealing with now. I'd like to start with lesson 47. God is the strength in which I trust. It says, if you are trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to feel anxious, apprehensive, and fearful. Yes, we sure do, right? And we do that, and that's part of our journey. But as we go along, we get to build this truth muscle, this remembering God is the strength in which we trust. And the more we do it, the better we get at returning, coming back to our center, coming back to remembering who we are, remembering we are children of God. So for a lot of us, it takes real honesty, taking a real honest look at where in our lives, what are we trying to control? Where are we trying to do life on our own, thinking we're separate, instead of being open to love, to God's guidance, and to the strength of God that resides in each and every one of us at all times. So it's honesty, it's important and simple but not easy. I think it just takes such tremendous courage to really use it, right? And to break away from our old patternings, whether it's people-pleasing patterns. We've got a lot of stuff from our childhood. And next, lesson 48. There is nothing to fear. And I like this one line. It's actually from the text, chapter 18. It says, if you knew who walked beside you on the path, on the way that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. I'll say that again. I think it just is, it's worth repeating, right? If you knew who walks beside you on the way that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. So we'll just pause and let's take that in. We have so much fear, so much other voices coming at us, and boy, how comforting to remember this. And maybe think about this when we're watching the news. Maybe we'll think about it, who's with us when we're meditating? Who's with us when we're driving? I like the thought, I can't remember where I heard it, but I love this in your prayer time or meditation. Just setting an extra chair or another cushion next to you. And just a way of signifying that, you are praying, you're supported, you have God, love, right next to you, right within us, right? And I love that visual. I'm a visual person, so I sometimes do that. I set up a chair next to me. And just a lovely reminder, right? Things we know. It's just remembering. I think that's the stuff. Mary talked about that in her talk last week. The little girl talking to her friend that her dad was a minister, and he delivers a message each Sunday. I think I'm going to get this right, Mary. I meant to ask you. But, and the little girl said that the dad talks about love each week, that we're beautiful people, but by Tuesday we forget. and it's like us. We need these reminders. And we know that the ego is loud. It's the loudest voice, right? And we have this negativity bias. So, it's okay to be gentle with yourself. And it doesn't make us less evolved or not spiritual enough when we forget, right? It's just a sign that we have lost our connection with God and that we've forgotten is working through us. And as Marianne Williamson always talks about, she says that our function is to be the faucet, and the water will come through us. So, just really I love that image. Are we willing to be open to be that faucet? Another helpful lesson is 49. God's voice speaks to me all throughout the day. And it further says, the part of your mind in which truth abides is in constant communication with God, whether you are aware of it or not. And as we were told in the introduction to the Course in Miracles, the aim is to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. We cannot block this love. And just like we can't block God's voice talking to us all through the day, this constant communication is happening. And love is busy loving us also, whether we're aware of it or not. So what a wonderful thing to be thinking of. Even at either when our thoughts, our negative thoughts are going on, this voice, it's constantly there, right? And this love, it is there. Another line says it's quite possible to listen to God's voice throughout the day without interrupting your regular activities in any way. So we don't have to sit for hours. We don't have to go to the meditation cave or to the mountains. But what we are being asked is to learn to still our minds and to practice inner listening. And simple, but not easy, right? This can be, I think for a lot of us, our minds they can go to lots of places when we're meditating, right? So, but it's a practice. This is a practice, and I wanted to mention, I listened to a beautiful a talk yesterday. It was a synchronized, it was a moment of silence, and it was being aired. It was by May Peace Prevail on Earth. It was an organization. They had a few different groups there, and they came to help the refugees that were going to cross over to the border, and they were handing out teddy bears. They were handing food. They had someone came with a piano to play music. And the people who were there, when interviewed, they said they just were called to come. And I'm thinking, that's someone who was practicing that inner listening, all the people that are there. And we do it, we don't have to do it in as big waves as going to a border, right? Which is a lovely thing. But practicing, everyone, they were so in tune to that inner voice that they were called. I thought, how beautiful. And it's no different. We do that. We do that when we know our neighbor is not, it's not feeling well, or there's a death in the family. We go to visit. We're just, so, no act of love is too small or big. So that part, that is listening to the voice of God, and to discern this, which I think we know, but to discern, it's that calm voice. It's the relaxed voice, right? A peaceful voice. It's not the frantic voice, that anxious voice. So we have to develop, well, it would be, honestly, it's discipline. I think our society has a really negative connotation to discipline. And Marianne Williamson often talks about discipline. It comes from the same root word as the word disciple. And I think it was Holly Holden, she defines it as spending time with the teacher who loves you. And I just love that definition, because I'm one of those people, that definition, the word discipline, never really, I didn't like it, I'll be honest. So, but it's a much different way of viewing it. I like to now think of that. I'm spending time with the teacher who loves me. boy, it just switches our thinking, right? And so it's just paying attention to our thoughts. It's noticing our thoughts. I know it's so much easier to be listening to the voice of God here when we're with these wonderful, like-minded people. It can be a lot easier. So I think for a lot of us, it's throughout the day. What can we do to remember to listen to that voice? I mean, I know some people put Post-it notes around the house. I like that. Reminders in the phone. And I think that's really, really good. But just leave that as a thought. What would be a thought? What's something that you might do? I mean, for me, I know I need to have a spiritual morning practice. That's just me. And boy, if I don't, I mean, my life goes sideways when I'm not making that time. So I'm just put that out there to think about that. Let's see. And I guess, and going back to the discipline, all right, keep spending time. The more time you devote to this inner listening, we will hear this voice within, right? Repetition, consistency, showing up, building our showing up muscle. And are we willing to be open to the guidance? Once we are sitting there, are we willing to be open to this guidance? And then, of course, the action steps that follow. And for me, it's such a good reminder to slow down, have more pauses in the day. And it's making our spiritual practices a priority. I don't know, does anyone here have a to-do list? Come on, or how many to-do lists? I'm not even going to tell you how many to-do lists I have. But can we put that on top? You know, we prioritize all these things in our life. Where's your spiritual practice? It could be, it doesn't matter what it is, but can we make time? What is that ego? I always think of that ego, edging God out. How can we make time to create that space for, you know, this centering, this grounding, which will help us to be that presence of love, help us to be who we want to show up as in the world. And I love this quote by Ingrid Goff Madoff. It says, God spoke to me today in flowers, and I was waiting on words, almost missed the conversation. Holly Holden, another wonderful Spirit Course in Miracle teacher, says, this voice, this presence is all around us, waiting for us to hear and experience its love for us. Many people experience this through connections, flowers, nature, and moments of grace in our days. I was going to share one example. I know I was in a hurry one day driving to Grand Rapids and had to get up early, and I was just running behind, driving, and I realized I hadn't spent time in my practice, and I just started this whole rant of this negative voices just flowing. And then I just looked up, and there's this gorgeous sunrise. I mean, it was just so stunning, and it was like, wow. And just to see that beauty, that grace, and that was God speaking through that sunrise, and just to be open to those miracles, right, that are all around us, and to be easy on ourselves. We can do these practices, we have the discipline, and just being kind. We're kind to ourselves. The last lesson I would like to share is 35. Are we there already? We are. You guys, are you still with me? Are you with me? Okay, good, okay. Just checking. You're in line too. I'm checking you too. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And this one might sound like, I think, sometimes a difficult one to take in, that my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And because often we have so much invested in our stories, and often they're not really very positive stories that we've created. And often these stories are also confirmed by the world. And the good news is that this lesson delivers the truth that our holiness already exists, whether or not we believe it or are aware of it. And I like the practical part of this course, of this lesson. It asks us to make a list of how we see ourselves. And actually, you guys who are here, you'll have it in your insert. You have a piece of paper, and it says, I see myself. Yeah, grab that if you don't mind. It says, it talks about the ways you see yourself in the world. It says, I see myself as, and then there's a couple of blanks. And that could be, and it doesn't matter, just however you see yourself at the moment. And it could be, I feel depressed. I could be content. I feel imposed on. I could feel grateful. Both positive and negative things. It doesn't matter. And I'm going into a little more detail because I'm in a little bit. I'm going to actually do this as part of a meditation, but I'll go through it again. So at home too, if you have a paper and pen, that would be really good. So, and as you're thinking of the attributes that you see yourself in right now, how you see yourself, you're just, and if a thought or a person, an event crosses your mind, you could use that too. So I see myself in relationship to an issue with maybe a person or an organization, and then after you have named each one, we're going to add. But my mind is part of God's. I am very holy, and I did this, and it was a period where I was having an issue with a family. It's a family situation, and it was really a tough situation I was having. I couldn't shake it, was trying to shift, and I just started to do this. And I'm someone who needs to write things down, so I wrote it down, and I had to write this down honestly a couple times, and then for a few days. And each day, as I was doing this, I could feel there was a softening, and there was what was happening, a little more clarity. I was getting a little more clear. I wasn't as reactive. Right? I was able to look at this through a total different eyes, from the eyes of love, as the Course would say. So there was shaking off some of this negativity. And I just found that it was so helpful. And I also added at the bottom, I think if you're there, you've got it on the sheet, I added, my holiness blesses the situation, right? Or it could be a person or event. So the combination of doing that. I see myself as, you list them, and then after each one, I would say, but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And then adding, this was like a little extra. I needed the extra, and it really seemed to help. For me, it was like a forgiveness tool, a type of a forgiveness tool. And so that's why it just came to me to add this to our meditation. So we're going to do that, and I hope, does that feel like I've explained it? I'll go through it again in the meditation. You feel like you got a pretty good sense of that? Okay, all right. So let's begin. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for our meditation. We'll begin by sitting up nice and tall. Maybe it's moving your shoulders, just shaking any parts of your body that you need to move. You can close your eyes or let your gaze soften. Be flat on the earth with a nice open, wide posture. And just drawing your senses inward. And take a nice, long, slow breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Let's Let's do that for just a couple more breath cycles. And then let your breathing cycles soften and lengthen naturally. And perhaps place one hand on your heart center. This place of peace within. Connecting to this limitless presence within us. I invite you to take a moment to reflect on this lesson. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And maybe use this as an invitation to experience yourself as God sees you right now, today. Before you feel worthy enough or spiritual enough. Before you've forgiven yourself or others. And in this quiet time, please make a list of the ideas about yourself that come to you. I see myself as, and then you just fill that in. Your own personal list. There will be positive things and negative, just whatever comes to mind. And the way that you are seen by God has no interest in how successful you are in that. If a specific situation, person, or event crosses your mind, you can use that. And once you have your list, I'd like you to repeat the lesson to yourself. If you're home, I'd say you could repeat the words out loud. If you're here, repeat them to yourself. But my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Maybe go through your list and just add that line to each attribute that you've assigned to yourself. But my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. You don't have to strain to think of things. And just relax and repeat this lesson until something comes. And if something doesn't come, that's fine. You can just repeat the lesson to yourself. Breathing in and out. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And we'll just take a few minutes of silence once you finish. being today, let's realize that the gift that you have been seeking out there in the world is nestled safely in your own heart. It is the gift of your own being. It is your God self. It sits patiently, joyfully, quietly awaiting your noticing. It has been shining at you all along and will continue to do so. You can come back to this space if you feel like you're finished, maybe moving your shoulders, fingers. Just a little bit more I want to add, and then I have a short prayer. And I wanted to list I wanted to talk about this three-centered approach that Robert Holden, he's one of my favorite Course in Miracles teacher. His suggestions and approach to how to live in these times, during these times. And he said, first, we meditate. Right? We meditate to love. We connect to the love within us, and that the love that blesses the world. Says 2, we pray. So we're tuning into the guidance. And 3, after that, we act according to what love the divine asks us to do. So we can ask God, what is the action you would have me do today? And I think that's just something, an important question for us to ask in our practices. How is it that to use us to be an instrument of love, of peace? And I will end with a prayer from Macrina Rirokar. Oh God, help me to believe the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is. Thank you. Namaste.
Our thoughts and prayers. Our thoughts are raised, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are raised, take charge of what you're saying. See higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer.
So before I do this next song, I want to give a little bit of background about the song. It's inspired by 2 quotes. One was a quote about feeling like when you are not quite in the shallow end anymore, when you're getting a little bit out to the deep end, and you feel you can't quite touch the bottom, that level of just a little bit of discomfort in your life is where you need to push yourself to go to the deep end, to do the hard things. And then the other quote was John Lewis's quote about getting in good trouble. And I kind of put those 2 ideas together in this song. And sometimes we need to be pushed a little to feel a little uncomfortable and put ourselves in a position, because that's where things get exciting, and that's where the good work needs to happen. So this is where it gets exciting. my breath. I can't quite touch the bottom, but I gotta keep my head above the water line. And I'm right where I need to be to up my game, fight complacency. In the deep end, there's no hiding. This is when it gets exciting.
Oh, oh, oh.
This is where we get exciting.
Oh, oh.
This is where we get exciting.
Oh, oh.
This is when it gets exciting.
Oh, oh.
This is where we get exciting. Oh, oh. This is where we get exciting. Oh, oh. This is when it gets exciting. Gotta get beyond my comfort zone. Can't just live well enough alone. I can't quite touch the bottom, but I gotta do more than just treading water. Speak out, give it away, speak truth to power. Don't turn away, whether you're up on the stage or in a little bubble. Don't go picking fights, but get in good trouble. Oh, oh, picking fights. Oh, oh, don't go picking fights. Oh, oh, don't go picking fights, but get in good trouble.
Oh, oh, oh.
Picking fights. Oh, oh, don't go picking fights. Oh, oh, don't go picking fights, but get in good trouble. Never been here before, never had the courage to go through that door. But I gotta drop the imposter syndrome, I know I belong. I just gotta let it hit home. Tune into the signal, ignore the noise. You can't give in to the doubt that destroys. You don't shy away, keep on fighting. This is when it gets exciting.
Oh, oh, oh.
This is where it gets exciting. Oh, oh. This is where it gets exciting. Oh, oh. This is where it gets
It's exciting. Oh, oh, oh.
This is where it gets exciting. Oh, oh. This is where it gets exciting. Oh, oh. This is where it gets exciting. This is where it gets. This is where it gets. Where it gets exciting. This is where it gets. This is where it gets. It's exciting tonight.
Another wonderful song. Are these new ones?
Yes.
Yes. Beautiful, beautiful, and very good messages. So thank you, David Percivals, and thank you, Corey, for being with us here again. He's taken on Lucille Olson's role with us, so he's going to be with us every Sunday. So thank you, Corey. And thank you, Reverend Julie, for your wonderful talk. A lot of wonderful and powerful reminders for us and things that we can use in our lives every day to make ourselves happier and more joyful and more peaceful. And that's what our teachings are about here at the fellowship, expanding our awareness and our consciousness, and not just words and remembering passages or dogma. It's about diving into life. So thank you for that. I have a few announcements today. Not next Sunday, but March 20th, after service, we're going to have a membership meeting, finally, after a couple of years of not being together. So we would appreciate it if all of you Also on March 19th, which is a Saturday, we're having a St. Patrick's Day fundraiser dinner at the fellowship office, so please join us for that. Don't need to bring anything. We're going to be supplying the corned beef and cabbage and potatoes and some bread and butter and beverages, so everything will be covered. And the last thing,
At
yes.
5 o'clock.
Oh, yes, 5 o'clock. You'll see it, and we'll be sending out a email about it as well. And would love to have you RSVP by next Saturday, so that we know how much food to get. So I'm not saying you can't show up if you forgot to RSVP, but it would be very helpful if you do. So thank you for that. One more last thing. How many of you have checked out our fellowship YouTube site, our YouTube channel? Okay, not too many. We have all of the services and other wonderful things like the Walk in the Woods with Richard Laston. Lots of good things for you to look at. So check it out and subscribe while you're there. It grows our reach of the fellowship. So good for you, good for the fellowship. Just get to it by searching for Fellowship for Today Spiritual Center, and it'll come right up. So now we're going to get into our beautiful big peace circle, virtual and in person here. Just imagine this peace circle stretching around the world. All of our peace leaders in on our planet are joining in with us, and then we'll end with our closing blessing.
The power of God protects us. The presence of God is within us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And that's the truth.
I want pictures of everyone.
Oh shoot, I forgot to talk about the people.
I know, yeah, but